picture this. It's Friday afternoon.
Absolute worst time for this.
Right. You are prepping for a massive reporting meeting, and you open your analytics dashboards expecting a clean, straightforward read on your performance for the month.
Naturally.
But right away, the panic sets in. Google Analytics 4 is telling you that you have, say, 10,000 users.
Okay.
So you cross-reference that with your CRM or maybe your ads dashboard, and they are stubbornly sitting at 8,200.
Ouch. Yeah, that hurts.
You refresh the page, nothing changes. So who is lying to you?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
That really is. Welcome to episode 11 of Fix the Funnel with GA Fix. Today, we are taking a deep dive into the absolute chaos of mismatched analytics. And the stakes here are, they're incredibly high.
Yeah, they really are.
Gartner actually estimates that poor data quality costs organizations an average of $12.9 million per year.
That is a staggering number.
It's wild. Accurate analytics are the critical foundation for your company's decision-making. If you are steering the ship based on ghost data, you're going to crash.
Exactly.
So our mission for this deep dive is to explore why GA4 rarely lines up perfectly with your other platforms. We want to uncover the specific drivers skewing your numbers, and most importantly, learn how to systemically fix them so you can actually trust your reporting again.
Yeah, and before anyone panics and just assumes their entire tracking infrastructure is completely broken, we really have to redefine what accurate actually means in modern analytics.
Right, because people expect perfection.
Exactly. Expecting a perfect one-to-one match between every tool in your tech stack is just a setup for failure. We have to shatter the myth of perfect data parity.
So parity doesn't mean exact equality.
No, not at all. Data parity between your platforms does not mean exact equality. Every single platform, whether it is GA4, Meta Ads, an ELT tool like Fivetran, or a product analytics tool like Mixpanel.
They all have their own rules.
Precisely. Each one has its own unique, hard-coded logic for how it counts. They define what an event is differently, they calculate the lifespan of a session differently, and they enforce user consent rules in completely different ways.
Okay, let's unpack this. Think about it like driving your car down the highway.
I like this.
You look at the speedometer on your dashboard, and it says you are going 65 miles per hour, but you also have a GPS navigation app open on your phone.
Sort of like Google Maps or Waze.
Exactly. And that app says you are going 63 miles per hour. Neither of those tools is technically broken.
Right.
They just use fundamentally different mechanics to measure the exact same journey. Your car is mechanically measuring the physical rotation of your tires, while your phone is calculating the time it takes to ping a satellite in orbit.
They will never perfectly match.
Right, and they were never designed to.
What's fascinating here is that this mismatch isn't a bug in Google Analytics. It is a byproduct of how modern, complex systems collect and attribute data across the internet.
So it's just the nature of the beast.
It really is. For B2B SaaS companies and e-commerce sites, seeing a 5 to 25% difference between GA4 and other tools is completely routine.
Wait, up to 25% is normal?
Absolutely. It is the baseline reality. The goal you should be aiming for isn't a flawless mathematical match. It's a consistent, explainable variance.
Explainable being the key word there.
Exactly. The real danger isn't the variance itself. The danger is when that variance fluctuates wildly, like jumping from a 5% gap to a 40% gap without any logical explanation.
Okay, so if a 5 to 25% variance is our normal baseline, we really have to look at what physically drags those GA4 numbers down compared to what backend server logs capture.
Yes, we need to talk about privacy.
Right, we are entering the black hole of privacy, and I know this hits international traffic especially hard.
Oh, massively. For EU traffic, particularly after the strict enforcement of GDPR and e-privacy directives, we routinely see GA4 missing 15 to 40% of sessions.
Wow, up to 40%.
Yeah, when compared directly to raw server logs. The data simply vanishes because of strict consent requirements and technical blocking mechanisms at the browser level.
Like cookie banners.
Exactly. Consider cookie consent banners. If a site is configured properly, that banner only fires the GA4 tracking scripts after a user explicitly clicks accept.
And if they don't?
If a user ignores the banner entirely or clicks decline, those events never execute. GA4 receives 0 packets of information about that visit.
It's like they were never there.
Completely invisible to the UI. And then you factor in browser-level protections like Safari's Intelligent Tracking Prevention or ITP.
Oh, ITP is a nightmare for marketers.
It physically restricts how long a cookie can live in the browser. If a tracking script is detected, Safari might cap that cookie's lifespan to just 24 hours.
So what happens the next day?
Well, if a user visits your site on Monday and comes back on Wednesday, GA4 looks for the cookie, realizes it has been deleted by Safari, and counts that returning visitor as a brand new user.
Oh man, so it artificially inflates your user count while simultaneously dropping their historical session data.
Exactly. It's a double whammy.
This has to have a disproportionate impact on B2B audiences. I mean, B2B buyers are often researching software on highly secure corporate-managed devices.
Oh yeah, devices that have rigid firewalls, default ad blockers, and strict privacy settings already baked in,
Right.
which is exactly why GA4 rolled out advanced consent mode. When users decline analytic storage, the system doesn't just give up.
It does something else.
Yeah, advanced consent mode allows GA4 to send cookieless pings. These are anonymous signals that don't store user identifiers, but they do send functional data.
Functional data like what?
What, like the timestamp, the type of device being used, and whether a conversion happened. GA4 then takes those anonymous pings, looks at the observable behavior of the users who did consent, and uses machine learning to estimate the behavior of those who didn't.
It models the missing data.
Precisely. It fills in the gaps in your reports.
So what does this all mean? If GA4 is essentially guessing the behavior of a massive chunk of our audience using modeled data, can we even trust the dashboard?
That's the big debate right now.
Because I compare that to a product analytics tool like Microsoft Clarity, which only reports the direct interactions it actually captures, regardless of consent status.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't this modeling just a massive technical failure on Google's part to accurately track users?
This raises an important question about our expectations of analytics platforms. But I would argue this isn't a technical failure at all. This is privacy compliance working exactly as intended.
Working as intended by forgetting people.
Exactly. The system is structurally designed to forget people who ask to be forgotten. But the tension you are pointing out is super valid.
Right, because we still need to know how many people visited.
And that forces us to evaluate how much weight we put on a UI dashboard versus our raw server logs to understand our true audience size. Server logs capture the literal request made to load the website's files.
Regardless of what cookies the browser accepts.
Yes. Anyone managing a large site needs to compare their GA4 data with their backend server logs at least once, purely to quantify their own specific structural tracking loss rate.
Okay, so we've established why GA4 numbers artificially shrink, but let's look at the complete opposite scenario.
Overcounting.
Yes. I've seen situations where the marketing team is thrilled because direct traffic is booming, but the sales team is staring at a totally flat pipeline.
The classic disconnect.
The numbers are heavily inflated. We've removed the privacy blockers, but now we have to deal with the hidden driver of overcounting, which is internal traffic.
Internal traffic is one of the most common yet easily solvable sources of corrupt data.
Really? Easily solvable?
Well, it takes some work, but yes. In older analytics setups like Universal Analytics, internal traffic filtering was somewhat straightforward. But in GA4, the platform does not automatically filter out your internal team.
Right, it just tracks everyone by default.
Yes. If you do not explicitly build the rules to ignore your employees, the platform will count every single click, page view, and scroll they make as a legitimate customer interaction.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Leaving internal traffic unfiltered is like a restaurant manager counting the chefs, the waitstaff, and the dishwashers as paying customers just to make the daily foot traffic numbers look better for the owner.
That is a perfect analogy. It creates a total illusion of growth.
But if the issue is my QA team clicking around on a staging site or remote sales reps running client demos, I can't just tell them to stop working.
No, you definitely can't do that.
So how does an analytics engineer surgically remove their data without accidentally deleting real customer data?
It requires a highly specific, multi-step engineering fix. First, you define the scope of internal. It is not just the headquarters office anymore.
Right, everyone is remote now.
Exactly. It is sales teams running demos, remote workers on company laptops, and QA vendors running automated scripts. Second, you partner with your IT department to collect the IP ranges.
Okay, getting the actual IP addresses.
You need the static office IP addresses and the documented VPN ranges. For instance, if your remote team routes their traffic through an AWS VPN in Virginia or a localized server in Bangalore.
That makes sense.
Third, you go into the GA4 admin settings and configure the internal traffic rules. You input those IP ranges so that whenever a hit originates from one of those networks, GA4 appends a hidden parameter to the data packet that says traffic_type equals internal.
But merely tagging the data packet with a label doesn't magically remove it from the visual reports my marketing team is looking at, right?
No, it doesn't. And that leads to the fourth and most critical step, creating data filters. This is where companies permanently destroy their own data.
Oh, wow. Permanently destroy.
Yes. A data filter in GA4 has three states: inactive, testing, and active. Far too often, an analyst will build the IP filter and immediately flip the switch to active,
Why is that bad?
because active mode filters the data at the processing level. If you made a typo in your IP ranges, or you accidentally included the massive shared corporate network of a major enterprise client,
Oh, no.
yeah, that legitimate customer traffic is excluded. And GA4 does not keep a raw backup recovery path. Once it is filtered out at processing, it is permanently deleted.
That is terrifying.
You must run your filters in testing mode for 3 to 7 days first.
So testing mode acts like a preview. It adds a new dimension to your report so you can literally view your traffic split side by side,
Exact.
seeing what is labeled internal versus what is labeled external without actually deleting anything from the database.
It allows you to quantify the exact volume of traffic you are about to remove.
Hmm.
We have audited accounts where up to 18% of a company's reported direct traffic was actually just their own employees and QA teams testing new features.
18%.
Yes. Once you verify that 18% is genuinely internal,
No.
and you confirm you aren't blocking real buyers, only then do you carefully switch the filter to active.
Carrying an 18% margin of error in your marketing reports because you are tracking your own engineers is wild.
It happens all the time.
Okay, so we've removed the human elements from the equation. We've accounted for users hiding behind ad blockers, and we've stripped out our own employees. But even when the humans behave perfectly, these platforms still disagree with each other.
Oh, the machines have their own problems.
Exactly. What is the software doing to itself behind our backs? Let's dig into the technical gremlins.
The first major gremlin is cross-domain tracking, specifically concerning payment gateways.
Okay, like PayPal or Stripe.
Mechanically, GA4 identifies a user by placing a first-party cookie on your specific domain. Let's say a user is on your primary domain, adds a product to their cart, and clicks checkout.
And then your site routes them to PayPal to securely process the payment.
Right, but PayPal cannot read the cookie that GA4 left on your domain. When the payment clears and PayPal routes the user back to your order confirmation page, GA4 looks for the cookie, doesn't see one coming from the PayPal referral, and assigns a brand new first-party cookie.
Wait, so it effectively breaks the session in half.
Yes, GA4 sees one user leave, and a completely different brand new user arrive from PayPal.com to trigger the conversion.
So the analytics platform thinks PayPal is the marketing channel that drove the sale, completely erasing the credit from the Google ad or the email campaign the user clicked 5 minutes earlier.
Exactly. That destroys your conversion attribution.
That is so frustrating. What's the next gremlin?
The second gremlin is strictly chronological. Different tools manage time differently. GA4 operates on a 30-minute rolling session timeout.
Okay.
If a user opens your site, reads a blog post, and goes to make lunch for 31 minutes before clicking another link, GA4 ends the first session and starts a new one.
But other tools don't do that.
Not necessarily. A product analytics platform might use a strict 60-minute timeout, or might define a session entirely by background app activity. Furthermore, time zones create massive daily reporting discrepancies.
Oh, time zones. I didn't even think of that.
If your data warehouse is set to Coordinated Universal Time, but your GA4 property is set to Pacific Standard Time, your daily numbers will never align.
Give me an example of how that breaks things.
Well, if a user completes a purchase at 5 p.m. in California, GA4 logs it on Tuesday, but the data warehouse, running on UTC, logs that exact same transaction as happening at 1 a.m. on Wednesday.
That is painfully simple, but completely invisible if you aren't looking for it. I can see how a 3-hour definition of midnight would drive a data analyst totally crazy.
It causes so many arguments.
What about the attribution models themselves? How do these platforms actually claim credit for a sale?
This is the core of the attribution war. GA4 uses a data-driven attribution model by default.
Which means what exactly?
Mechanically, it looks at the entire sequence of touch points a user interacted with before converting and uses algorithmic modeling to distribute fractional credit to each channel based on its estimated impact.
Okay, so it shares the credit.
But advertising platforms like Meta Ads or Google Ads often default to a last-click model, where the final ad gets 100% of the credit, ignoring the 3 other ads the user saw first.
Wow.
And some ad platforms even use view-through attribution, claiming credit simply because a user scrolled past an ad on their feed, even if they never physically clicked it.
So you have the exact same single conversion being claimed in full by 3 different dashboards using 3 entirely different mathematical formulas.
Yep. It's chaos.
I want to make sure I understand the final technical gremlin data thresholding.
Thresholding.
When we enable Google Signals to get better cross-device tracking, like knowing a user visited on their phone and later bought on their laptop, GA4 applies thresholding to protect user identities.
Yes, that's a privacy feature.
To put this in perspective, data thresholding is like taking a massive group photo of your customers. If there's a large crowd of thousands, everyone's face is clear and visible.
Because they blend in.
Right. But if you try to zoom in and filter the report down to a tiny group of just 3 specific people, GA4 automatically blurs their faces so you can't identify them. The data simply disappears from the screen.
That's a great way to visualize it.
Wait, so if I'm presenting a standard GA4 UI report to my executive team, I might literally be looking at a heavily blurred, filtered estimate compared to what my data engineering team sees when they pull the raw data.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this specific mechanism is exactly why arguments start between marketing teams and data engineering teams.
Because they're looking at different data.
You are both looking at data generated by the exact same Google Analytics tracking tag. But the marketing team is looking at the visual UI, which actively hides rows of data with low user counts to maintain privacy compliance.
And the data team.
Meanwhile, the data team is querying the raw, unblurred, unthresholded data via the Google Analytics Data API or BigQuery exports. It creates 2 completely different versions of the truth originating from the exact same source.
That sounds like an absolute nightmare for team alignment.
It really is.
Well, we have diagnosed the chaos. We understand the mechanics of privacy drops, the internal traffic spikes, the cross-domain cookie breaks, and the thresholding blur. How do we systematically cure this? We need an actionable way to stop arguing in reporting meetings and actually get back to work.
It requires a disciplined, 5-step troubleshooting path. You cannot just guess where the gap is coming from.
Okay, step 1.
Step 1, check the time zones across your stack. As we discussed, a UTC versus PST mismatch solves a huge percentage of daily reporting errors.
Simple enough. Step 2.
Step 2, establish the baseline gap using a simple metric. Do not start by analyzing complex, multi-touch revenue attribution. Look at total sessions.
Keep it simple.
Exactly. If GA4 reports 90,000 sessions and your server logs report 98,000, you have an 8% gap.
Because if you know the baseline gap is 8%, you're just looking for normal tracking loss.
Yeah.
You aren't hunting for a total structural failure in your tag manager.
Spot on. Step 3 is segmenting that baseline gap by device and geographic country.
To find out where it's coming from.
Right. If you isolate the data and realize all the missing sessions are coming from mobile Safari users in the European Union, you instantly know it is an ITP and consent banner issue, not a broken tracking script.
That makes troubleshooting so much faster.
Step 4 requires validating your tracking mechanically using the GA4 debug view.
What does debug view do?
The debug view isolates a single user's device in real time, bypassing GA4's standard 24-hour processing delay. You physically run through a key action on your site, like filling out a lead form, and watch the data packets fire sequentially to see if the conversion parameters are dropping off.
That's incredibly granular.
And finally, step 5 is cross-checking those timestamps with your actual CRM logs to find the absolute ground truth.
And the ultimate goal of all this investigation isn't necessarily to force GA4 to match the CRM perfectly, right?
Right.
Because we know that is mathematically impossible given the different counting logic.
Right. Don't try to force a perfect match.
The goal is to create a documented known differences reference sheet. When your analytics team can explicitly state, GA4 will consistently track 15% lower than our CRM because of EU cookie consent regulations, the debate ends.
The debate ends, but maintaining that alignment is difficult. Configurations drift over time.
What do you mean by drift?
Someone updates the staging site URL, or a new payment gateway is added, and suddenly the cross-domain tracking is broken again. Manually checking IP filters, referral exclusions, and consent mode tags across a massive web property every single week is incredibly tedious.
Which is precisely where GA4 comes in. GA4 acts as an automated GA4 auditing tool.
It is a lifesaver.
Think of it like a continuous spell checker running quietly in the background for your entire analytics infrastructure. It acts as an AI-driven analytics engineering partner that specifically hunts for these mechanical misconfigurations.
Yes, it automates the tedious stuff.
It constantly pings your setup, to check if your internal traffic filters were accidentally flipped off, if your cross-domain tracking is dropping cookies, or if there are sudden gaps in your consent mode deployment.
The true value of disciplined configuration is peace of mind. Perfect numerical alignment across every single tool in your stack is technologically impossible.
Right.
But with regular automated audits catching configuration drift before it corrupts the database, GA4 transforms from a daily source of frustration into a highly reliable decision engine.
I can imagine how relieving it must be for a marketing team to have an automated auditor. Instead of spending 3 hours in a spreadsheet debating whose dashboard is right, the system flags the error, you fix it, and you actually spend your time analyzing your campaigns.
Imagine that, doing actual analysis.
To wrap up our deep dive today, remember that a 5 to 25% variance between your tools is standard operating procedure. Do not panic over it.
Keep calm and check your filters.
Exactly, but do ensure you are utilizing the Tesla mode to filter out your internal employee traffic, and always audit your cross-domain setup so third-party checkout gateways aren't breaking your user sessions in half.
Document those known discrepancies too.
Yes, document your known discrepancies because transparency is what ultimately builds trust in the data. I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you look at your own dashboards this week.
Lay it on them.
If every single tool in your tech stack, from Meta to GA4 to your CRM, is aggressively claiming credit for a conversion using entirely different mathematical rules, how much of our gut feeling as marketers is actually just us subconsciously choosing to trust the dashboard that makes our work look the best?
That is a dangerous but very real temptation to navigate.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive on Fix the Funnel with GA Fix. Do yourself a favor and go check the status of your internal traffic filters today. We'll catch you next time.